Let's work. Yo, it's go time, showtime, never backing down time. One shot, yo, make it count, yo. Crunch time, shine time, make this moment my time. Get a grip, yo, ready, set, go. We bring the thunder. Bring the thunder. Let's work. Bring the thunder. Let's go. Bring the thunder. Let's work. Bring the thunder. Let's go. Yeah, it's my time, yo time. Step into the spotlight. Get lit, yo. Let yourself go. Our time, high time. Gotta go big time. This is it, yo. Never take no flight time. Grind time. Take it to the street time. Tear the roof off. Get loco. Game time, win time. We gon' bring it home time. No regrets now. Let it all go. We bring the thunder. Bring the thunder. Let's work. Bring the thunder. Let's go. Bring the thunder. Let's work. Bring the thunder. Let's work.
Well, good evening and welcome to Mountain Bears. I'm Aeson, and of course with me is my Calvin the Mostest and our co-host, Techie Joe. How are you, darlings?
I'm doing well. How are you this evening?
Halfway evil.
I know, and in stereo because I've got a headset in.
Oh, you've got me in stereo. Well, we both have moved over to using headsets, hopefully to boost our sound quality. We'll be seeing how that works. We never know how these new toys and technology is going to work, but you know that because we have a Techie Joe, we're going to probably have the latest tech available.
Hey, we try, you know?
Yes. Hello, Miss Shannon. How are you? So, which of the techie stories do we want to take on? Because we're a little tech heavy tonight, but a lot of tech has been moving around.
There has been. Let's go ahead and the Apple story, I think, is where we want to start tonight off at.
Okay.
Like, that seems to me like the one where it's just like, no, we really have to deal with that.
Right.
So,
go for it.
All right, so Apple pays millions of dollars to student after apparently parrot repair staff leaked her explicit photos online. Sensitive photos were accessed and leaked by workers repairing her iPhone. Yeah, so she takes her phone in 2016. And this is a third-party repair center. Pegatron in California, which is apparently a chain. And yeah, two employees of the firm accessed the photos on her phone and then shared them to Facebook, and a video as well. So yeah. But apparently, so she sued, and yeah, the technicians have been fired. All of this was supposed to be a non-disclosure event. Like, they settled. Hey, Dottie. Hey, Shannon. And unfortunately, because of a issue with Pegatron's insurer, and sorry, guys, I'm not ready for stereo. Because of Pegatron's insurer, they disputed the amount of the reimbursement for this settlement. All of this got disclosed. So that's how anyone even knows about it. But yeah.
But this creates a big issue in general. First of all, we have a tech who I don't believe probably has as much skills or qualities as you do working in a Pegatron store, and then violates the client's privacy. $1 million? No, this is $1 billion suit.
Well, the level, it's the egregiousness of it. And they point that out in the article that, like, that's a good word choice. That's the wonderful use of the word egregious. Unfortunately, it's the reality.
Mm-hmm.
of like when you hand your devices, whatever they may be, phone, iPad, whatever, over to a tech center for repair, you're trusting them with a lot. And I don't think most people run that through their heads first.
Mm-hmm.
That, no, you really want to trust the person you're dealing with. Because this is a trust-based industry.
Mm-hmm.
I without naming any names, I am sure over the span of my career, I have dealt with enough sensitive data that if I improperly handle it, I can at least create embarrassment. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
not even talking about like porn pics. I'm talking about Word docs.
Mm-hmm.
Because in my time, I've seen titles for things.
Mm-hmm.
And again, not naming names or organizations they're attached to. And just something as simple as like trying to fix browser settings.
Mm-hmm.
Like, quite frankly, most people don't clear their browsing history. So you
Mm-hmm.
start typing a few letters, and I'm gonna start seeing where you've been.
Mm-hmm.
Just with something as simple as like Windows, because lots of words that, oh, I got the wrong one. I'm so sorry, guys. But yeah, no, it's one of those things that as you're going through a repair,
Mm-hmm.
you're going to see some stuff. It's inevitable. It is, anything that deals with data, anything that deals with the device itself,
Mm-hmm.
anything that deals with like browser repair, like if you're having like issues with your browser for whatever reason, the most common one is Chrome's black screen thing.
Mm-hmm.
That one's a pain in the butt. It's usually, by the way, side note, anyone running into that issue or runs into that issue, that's a graphics acceleration problem. Turn off
Right.
graphics accelerator, it fixes the problem.
Right.
But no, there's like anything of that, it opens up a doorway for seeing things that in general you don't want the whole neighborhood knowing about. We use our devices for everything from diagnosing or trying to figure out like what is wrong with us, to communications, all of that with varying levels of sensitivity. So yeah, you really got to trust the person you're handing that device over to. Now what these two employees have done,
Mm-hmm.
is created a massive problem for Pegatron,
Mm-hmm.
fundamentally, because it is very doubtful that anyone's gonna in California is gonna feel confident taking their devices there right now. Like that's a real strong shake on consumer confidence.
But
Because
we're
that's two
seeing
employees that have been fired.
Right. But we're seeing this a lot in violation of privacy. We're also
Mhm.
seeing this a lot with Apple products in general. I mean, because their cloud is constantly being hacked. That's why there's now nudes out of celebrities. There's
Mhm.
now photos of supposedly, people that have gone vegetarian with pictures of big steaks and that type of thing.
Mhm.
And this is Apple's bigger problem is they keep having privacy issues. If it isn't their text, it is their software.
Right. And unfortunately, Apple is going to face that. The bigger you get,
Hmm.
it's kind of criminal 101. What do you bet on?
Right.
You know, Trying to steal a celebrity's phone and hope
Right.
that there are nudes on the phone, making it worth the, effort.
Hmm.
Or getting into an individual celebrity's, home network or whatever, or do you go for the big fish?
Right.
Knowing that statistically,
Hmm.
there are a number of celebrities and high-profile people that are Apple devotees.
Right.
Like they are major Apple fans.
Right.
And that again, statistically, a large number of them will be taking photos And it's, 2021, 2020, 2019, 1860, we're in the 21st century. Inevitably, if you have a sex life in the 21st century, there are nudes most likely somewhere on your phone.
Mm-hmm.
Again, statistically, there's a few people out there that have avoided the bandwagon, but generally speaking, you're going to see some stuff. And, again, from the repair side of this, it's like, it's Tuesday. I don't go looking. Please don't set it as your wallpaper. I don't go looking.
Mm-hmm.
But if I'm having to deal with a problem where I have to get into your camera roll, as in like you're having a photo taking problem,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm not looking.
Right.
But ultimately, if I have to go take a picture to see what it's doing, or if I have to access the camera, then inevitably I'm going to see the last few pictures you took in your gallery.
Right. But here's my question. Why are people, all right, when we go to take the key in, we strip it down. We take out the go bags, we take out the doggy blankies, we take out the backup reading setup, we take out everything.
Well, now I do that when I take it in for, if we're getting a full clean, like as in that's typically when I do that. And I generally try to clean my car out for the most part before I take it in for any service. Right. Because we do occasionally keep some change and stuff like that. I try to keep most things out of sight or easily visible. And when I say easily visible, I mean things that when I get back in that car, I'm going to see it's gone.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't, I don't want to come back and get in my car and get, 3 weeks down the road and realize, hey, wait a second. Where's my pen? Or where's my, really nice lighter? Or where's my earbuds? That kind of thing. You generally don't want to leave stuff in your vehicle that is, a high value, easy theft item. Right. But your analogy with phones is we do have a problem there. In getting it, sometimes you end up with a problem that wouldn't allow you to clear your phone or clear your device or even clear your computer. A lot of people aren't really confident that their backup will bring everything back. And I do understand that because I've encountered that problem. I understand being really hesitant to go cleaning off your device before you take it in. Generally speaking, there's no good answers because ultimately these aren't photos you just want to leave randomly laying on, a thumb drive or whatever. Again, you run into the walk-off problem. And if, you've stored all your sensitive stuff on a thumb drive while that is disconnected, you do create a secondary problem, which is now anyone who gets near that thumb drive can walk off with it. So there's no good solution. There just isn't. So ultimately we do have to trust the services that we use. We have whether they're, an internet-based service like the cloud, or, iCloud, or any kind of, cloud-based storage such as Dropbox or whatever. But we also have to trust the service providers and the services we use, real world, to do physical repairs on those devices to act appropriately.
Right.
Regardless of why the device was taken in, I'm sure nothing that was stated in the consumer problem involved go through my pictures, look for my nudes, and share them online. That's so out of scope. One, that is a breach of the trust that you put in someone when you hand over your device to, either stay out of content they don't need to have access to, or if for whatever reason they do need to have access to the content of the device, to avoid exploiting that access.
Right.
And then the bigger problem being, with that device comes access to all of your accounts.
Right.
So once you've gotten past whatever security there is and you've turned that over to log into the device, all of those accounts are stored on the device.
Right.
So Facebook, Twitter, whatever. Again, you're trusting someone with a lot. And as happened to this woman, and none of this is her fault. No one should ever think that an event like this is their fault. They should not be ashamed or embarrassed by it, because this isn't what's supposed to happen. This is all on them.
Right. But that's also what I was looking at as the ways that we can prevent this happening to us. And that's when, I treat it, if I've got to turn over a system, i.e. we have to take a system out of network, what I call out of us, I'm stripping it. Like, the only thing it's going to get is bare minimum.
Right. Well, and if we are, like, say, donating a device or giving a device away, then yes, we absolutely want to do that. You want to make sure to clear off everything off that device that you can. Unfortunately, that's great for handoff devices, though there are some caveats on that. That generally works well for phones and tablets. I'm not saying there's no one out there that could recover what was on those devices, but it's a lot harder. There's a little more to it than the average, person can get into. Now, hard drive recovery is an interesting thing, because technically what happens is, if you follow, like, say, Windows, and it's reset my device, like, you choose the option that says I'm giving my device away, or I'm giving it to, I forget exactly what it says, but it's the one that's for, I will no longer be using my device, essentially. If you do that, what it does is a very basic delete operation that removes the data but doesn't remove it. Right. It's kind of a misnomer. In terms of, you're still going to end up with your data on that device in a deleted state. And this is especially true for old school spinning hard drives. You'll end up with that data sitting there in a deleted state that can be recovered. Right. Because essentially, until you overwrite that space, it is possible to pull data out that's been deleted. Right. So it creates a lot of problems. Hey, Brenda.
Hey, Brenda. All right. So this other one hit the news, and I'm like, okay. Texas mother arrested for, posing as her daughter.
Yes.
At school.
Yeah, this is an interesting story, and I think for me, the first thing you've got to do is divorce yourself of any, like, ill feelings towards her. Like, I really think, like, on the her side, I'll move over here and go, this was a really stupid idea. Like, what'd you think was going to happen? So, you got arrested because you did something wrong. Got it. Next part is you have to like take off the creepiness, like ick factors of, you know, an adult being posing as a student and all the things that we've really come to associate with that. That, you know, that's one, not even really what happened. Like, she did pose as a student, but it's not like she went through like a whole school year and, you know, got a boyfriend and, you know, got pregnant.
Right.
You know, it's not one of those stories. It was a one-day event.
Right.
Once you divorce yourself from that part of it, then you can actually look at, and whether or not, you know, she really was trying to make a point or if this was something else. The school itself, which does issue, you know, identification, which does, you know, take attendance, all those things, unfortunately did not catch that there was a, you know, 4 foot, I believe 11, 105 pound, 30-year-old sitting in all of these classes, despite the fact that, you know, they should know the child. Like, these are her teachers. Because what happened is this woman has a daughter that is enrolled in this school. They, you know, has been a student. And, you know, granted it's 7th grade, so that should be the middle of your middle school career, because it's 6, 7, 8. So yeah, so it's not like, you know, no one should really recognize her. Like, if we were talking about like the first month of the first semester of 6th grade at a middle school, okay, I could see that getting by. Like, that's a point where you don't have enough people that have a clue there. But no, this is kind of, there's a big problem with security there. In terms of, okay, that was way too easy. And she got way too far through that day.
Well, and here's the thing with it, and this is what I'm questioning, because A, she has a mask on. B, she was wearing a hoodie. C, she had her daughter's ID. She is the size. It isn't like me going into a classroom. It isn't like you going into a classroom. She's 4 foot 11, 105 pounds. She doesn't look 35, and especially if you cover up her, you know, most of her face and her forehead, because in the pictures of this, it looks like she literally tried to conceal everything about her other than her eyes.
Well, but the harsh reality was she ate lunch without a mask. And realistically, she didn't look much different. Like, the way she was dressed is a lot of how one would expect a student to show up for class. It's not like she showed up in, you know, a poodle skirt and, you know, like, that would stick out. Someone might pay more attention. But this is like basics. Like, she's another person wearing a hoodie and jeans in a school. The most she really did was dye her hair black to match her daughter's. And you know, used a little bit of spray tan to match her daughter's complexion. I'm not sure if her daughter's just like a tanning bed person, or if the genetics to create the daughter also included, you know, someone who's very different from her mother and resulted in a child that's, you know, has a different skin tone. That's not all made clear and doesn't matter. The fact that effectively, if a child dropped a student ID card, that's all things you could see off of that ID card, coupled with a hoodie. So finding someone who is, say, 5'4", 5'5", as a male, or 5'1", 5'2", because 4'11" isn't all that short for a woman.
Right.
It's short, but at the same time, it's not that short.
Right.
I believe the average height for women is somewhere around 5'3". So we're talking about a 4-inch difference there.
Right.
And you could cover that with heels. This isn't, a major, oh my God, I can't believe, no, that's not that much different. But these are simple things that someone could easily do to their appearance.
Right.
And if they look even remotely like the student, remotely,
right,
could easily pass. And that's kind of what, at least she said, she was trying to point out, is the lack of security. I think regardless of whether it was her intent or not, which that could argue any which way you want to go, the hard reality is it didn't take much.
No.
And she made it all the way to the last class of the day before a teacher asked her to stay late and said, "You're not Julie."
Right.
Which was the daughter's name. You're not her. What are you doing?
Right.
What's going on?
Right. But if they're quiet, if they stay in the back of the class, I'm quite sure, because of the photos we've seen, she's got her head down. If she acts like her daughter, talks like her daughter, eats like her daughter, no one's going to notice that.
Again, though, I would think that, I'm more curious where her daughter's friends are in this. Why are they saying anything?
Exactly. It's because
that's I don't know that. But that's still, you can also argue, what about the kid that has no friends?
Right.
And I'm not saying her daughter isn't that kid.
Right.
But there were kids in school that I don't know that anyone hung out with.
Right.
And I remember that. It wasn't I remember kids in my grade that it's they didn't want to be around anyone.
Right.
They were the loner kid. I swear to God, every class has one.
Right.
Graduating class. You always have the one kid that just screw off, leave me alone. I don't want anything to do with you, whatever.
Right.
I'm just here. But you also have the opportunity for a transfer student.
Right.
This is the new kid. I think it would have made it, and that's where we get into we could argue a lot about this.
Right.
Because ultimately what she did was use an existing student's ID to go to a school that
looks.
Right. Basically showed up looking enough like her daughter that no one questioned it.
Right.
Granted, you would think that the teachers would have a little better ability to differentiate the wait a second, or at least have a moment of something's off.
But then we challenge them, we scold them for trying to talk to teens, we scold them for trying to check in on teens. And, quite frankly, I'd like to see a picture of daughter. Of course, this was for a video. Hi, Mika. Welcome to the table.
Hey, Mika.
I'd like to see a picture of the daughter and her compared. I would also be very interested on exactly if this video that she put up is monetized. Because this is not my child needs to be protected. This is let me make a video, let me get thousands of views at it situation. And I'm glad that she's been charged with criminal trespassing and she had a traffic warrant out.
Yeah. That's an unrelated issue. As in, it still became part of her problem and all this, but It's not like she's a major, sex offending felon who went to, a kid's school and like fundamentally her reality was she was legally clean. So it's, motivation aside though, that's where I keep saying you got to kind of like push the her out of this and just look at the situation. And it does raise questions as to, how secure are schools really? And, how easy is it for an adult to pass as someone even as young as a middle school student?
Well, it's quite easy for some people to pass as middle school children. It's quite easy for middle school children to pass as adults. Well, in this case, reminds me of a case in Canada where the woman was like 35 years old and was posing as a 15, 16-year-old teenager, went and got themselves into foster care, was going to school, was creating all havoc in here, gone through, parenting, being parented. And I can't remember the name of the case to look it up, but the family found out she was like 37 years old.
Yeah. And again, I would think there would be some questions at some point. That at some point, someone's got to look at someone and just be like, something's wrong here.
Right.
Just something's wrong.
Right.
I don't know. But also, it brings up a question of if someone can get away with this. And especially like the Canadian case you're pointing out, that wasn't one day at school.
No.
Where arguably, could have been a motivation of her child didn't want to go that day. And she pulled a stunt.
Nadeline, I found the case, it's Nadeline. Her adoptive parents were actually charged with neglect.
Oh, good God.
Yeah.
So she got into foster care. And then managed to get the adoptive parents charged with neglect?
Yeah. It was a UK, it was a Ukrainian orphanage. This is how she accessed the foster care system. And they had to go and biologically prove that she was not 8, but was actually 22.
Oh, dear God.
Yeah.
Like, okay, there's a big difference between an 8-year-old and a 22-year-old.
No, not really.
Well, I mean, again, one would think.
Right.
Like, otherwise, like, I would be thinking we've, got a baby genius. Because what I would expect out of an 8-year-old, I would think a 22-year-old would have a hard time. And I don't mean to call it not necessarily dumbing down, but ignorancing it down. Because there's a lot of things you don't know as an 8-year-old that no one expects you to know.
Right.
Because you're 8.
Right.
So either she had to come across as the most intelligent 8-year-old.
Right.
Or, I don't know, give her an acting award for being able to act like an 8-year-old. In addition to, a nice long prison sentence for all the things wrong with that. But, I mean, it's almost a thing of if you're 22, it can pull off being an 8-year-old.
Right.
I mean, that's a lot.
Right.
That's like a lot of a lot.
Right. But in your box, and it's an actual picture of her, who's 22, well, now 23, and acting like an 8-year-old.
Oh, sorry, private chat is what you meant. Okay, There we go. So the story of Natalie Grace Oh. 8 adults were caught posing as children?
Yeah.
Jesus.
Like, this isn't new. This goes all the way back to, like, 2020. Well, let's go all the way back to 2010.
I don't get. She does look very young.
Mm-hmm.
I will give that. She like facially does look like she is developmentally around, pre-puberty.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah.
Yeah.
So okay. Oh, good Lord. Okay. Sorry, that's a long list of cases. That's a lot going on there. I mean, not to be rude, and this is probably so far beside the point. I just can't imagine being Natalia Grace at 22 trying to get a date. Like, I can't imagine the crap she went through in her life just trying to go on a blind date. Like, if you look like an 8-year-old at 22, like, ugh. I can imagine trying to date. Like, either you're going to get really creepy dudes, like, who would be having sex with children, or you're going to get guys that are grossed out.
Well, I feel more worse for her adoptive parents who have now been charged with neglect. Because they went through UK adoption. It isn't like pulling up to the orphanage and going, I'll take the redhead over there. Have him in the car, let's go. They have to go through rigorous testing, rigorous studies, rigorous helm testing, rigorous psychology testing, and then pay money to bring the child from the Ukraine to the UK to find out that, no, you got an adult.
At which point, I don't even know how you begin to fix that.
Right.
Like, legally, I don't know how you begin to fix that. And I think that may have been, like, I think she may, in that situation, and I'm just spitballing, that work with what you got to get out of a country you don't want to be in. I mean, effectively, I would think cleaning up the records and fixing her age would be a hell of a lot easier than trying to deport her.
Right. Well, they didn't even try to deport her. What they done was got her an apartment, put enough money in the bank account for her to live for 3 years. Had the court change her age on her birth certificate, and was still charged with neglect when Natasha ran out of money in 3 years.
Okay. Well, Natalia. Yeah. But I'm still trying to figure out, how do you get charged with neglect on that?
Because she was still on UK paperwork, 8, living in an apartment alone. And she started telling people that, no, mommy and daddy are in Canada and I'm all alone.
I'm sorry, I just have to go with she's got to be mentally disturbed.
Well,
I mean, like, there's a lot of things going wrong with this situation.
Right.
That I can understand if she's 22 and looks that young. There's, obviously that's its own situation that has to be figured out and rectified.
Right.
I'm just struggling with, once all that's come to light, and, I'm assuming got her age changed, correct? And it was that she was still stuck in the adoption system, in the family care system, as an 8-year-old, despite everything else pointing to her being a 22-year-old.
Right.
And then factor in that, she's continuing to act like the 8-year-old.
Mm-hmm. When
Like,
money
why?
ran out, when the family stopped giving her money, she began acting like the 8-year-old.
That's a messed up case across the board.
Yeah.
I'm trying to, there's so many things wrong there.
Right.
Hi, Mary.
Hello, Mary. I mean, this is just reminds me of that case, and I'm like, great. So now we're going to have other people trying to post, and it isn't the first time this has been done. It's been the first time everything's been pulled together.
Hey, Rachel. But yeah, data check for Natalia, her baptismal record from wherever it happened.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But at the same time, I mean, I don't know anyone that would even think to warn someone
Mm-hmm.
to that, oh, be careful when you go to get that 8-year-old. They might be a 22-year-old adult.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Or
like,
a 25-year-old, or a 25-year-old that played basketball for high school to relive his basketball career. I mean, this woman's idea isn't original. I just think it's bull. It's bull.
Well, but again, I understand, and I've had coworkers that looked a lot younger than they were.
Mm-hmm.
One specifically sticks out. Who physically just did not really look was technically older than I was by like a year.
Mm-hmm.
But when you look at them, like, they could have easily thrown on, say a 14-year-old's clothes, like acted like a 14-year-old.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think anyone would have caught on for a while.
Right.
Like, it would have taken a lot, but I think their biggest downfall would have been, okay, besides liking to drink too much, would have been that, I don't think they could have, played the teenager role without coming across as like teenager baby genius.
Right.
Like, you have a college degree in computers.
Right.
Like, I don't think they could have faked that long enough without being like, here, let me fix that. And,
Mm-hmm.
Great programmer, like really great programmer. I don't think that would have been something they could have given up.
Right.
And just been like, no, I'm 14.
Mm-hmm. So moving into, we're going to dance back into tech because there was another tech turn on today.
Okay.
Amazon turned on Amazon Sidewalk, and a lot of people are concerned about this.
Understandably,
Mm-hmm.
and then kind of not. I'm all over the place with Amazon Sidewalk. I don't particularly love the idea. I love the use cases they found for it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, those are great use cases. Those are wonderful use cases. Helping to find lost pets, helping to keep track of dementia patients. Those are beautiful use cases.
Mm-hmm.
And then all of the other things it does, which is basically, say, like our patio lights, which are a little far from, the network, helping those to reconnect if they have to, or to connect new devices, because you may end up being closer to your neighbor's Wi-Fi than you are to your own Wi-Fi, or your neighbor's devices, more importantly. I just struggle with the idea. I understand they've done a lot to at least reassure people and hopefully done the homework on it. to protect all the connections involved.
Right.
And all of the elements involved. Because one, as you know, someone like, okay, looking at it this way. If they do this wrong and I go to set up or our neighbor, more importantly, goes to set up a new doorbell or a new security camera, and it connects through our device, then potentially, if they do this wrong, I could gain access to that security camera. I could, or vice versa. So that's their side of the data they have to worry about.
Right.
Then there's my side, is that something as simple as setting up a security camera would expose our network to them. And then in all of this, the location awareness that, we are neighbors.
Right.
And, being able to see who lives next to who very quickly. Then I go back to the reality of war driving. For those of you unfamiliar, and I'm sure Mary's going to chime in here in a second and go, yes. But war driving was this wonderful thing back in the early days of Wi-Fi. Not that it doesn't still happen, it's just not as prevalent. In which you took a computer and drove around and basically saw how many wireless networks you could find while running a program that would try to figure out the password for that network. And the reality of that is it doesn't take that much.
Well, I don't know about that. Here's why I say that. And Rachel, we're going to get your question here in just a second.
Yeah.
Because I know every time we have to set the ring up or move the ring to a new phone, it takes an act of Congress. You have to log into my account, confirm with an email, confirm with a text message before it will even allow you to access the ring to tell you if the battery needs to be recharged.
Very true, because we're using the approved app. It doesn't remove the ability, because ultimately using the official app and using the official app's security is all great, well, fine, and good. That doesn't mean that you can't sit there with these devices and exploit the problems within them. And that's been an Internet of Things problem. The IoT, Internet of Things, from doorbells to all the little, like echoes and hems, and we have, and connected refrigerators and all the other things. Which right now a lot of people don't even realize how big their home networks are, because they're not even counting all of the things. And it's a little shocking the first time they get counted, and you're sitting there going, what the hell? I'm effectively running a computer lab. We all are. A lot of people are, at least.
Yeah.
But it's just kind of, when you're sitting there using the official applications and access methods, those can be made very secure. But that doesn't mean that they're not still exposed. They are a internet connected device. It doesn't mean someone can't figure out another way in. Or, a little, little tweak to how the official app connects and what it's doing through monitoring of ports and, the connections to figure out what you have to do to access it. Throw a little time at it and research the device and its specifications and find out as much as you can about it and learn how to decode it. Basically re-engineer it.
Right. Well, and my point is, and I didn't know about the dementia location and pet location. I'm liking the idea of it for webbing security, because so often do we have an incident at one house, and the ring will send up the notice in your neighborhood. Now we can literally be tracking them from, and it just happened in Beckley. Guy broke into the coffee shop, but apparently had been harassing the whole neighborhood, because there was like ring photo after ring photo, and the neighbors on the Ring network was able to go, oh yeah, I saw him at 10:32. Here's him at my door. Here's him at this. Here's him at that.
There is that scenario of it. Granted, now some of that is done by the neighbors with a vested interest. What's also concerning, however, is that you can, and it is now happening, as a law enforcement agency, subpoena Ring for a geographic area during a certain time period. Now, technically, and Ring has to turn that video over. Now, technically, all they're supposed to be doing is looking for video related to the crime they're investigating. I struggle with the belief that they're never going to misuse that. That if, for instance, you are the person in the neighborhood that comes home talking about, something illegal as you're walking in your front door, and this gets captured by your Ring, that if that happens to occur at the same time as as a criminal act, that they're trying to get video for, that would be ignored. I struggle with that. I struggle with the idea that that's not going to launch a second investigation.
Well, but here's the problem with that, and I do believe it's legal. It has the inability; they can't use it. Like, they can't prosecute on that because it's gotten from the ear of fruit or something to that effect.
Well, it's fruit of the poison tree. Is the concept legally. But then there's the reality of ultimately, does someone disclose that? Or do they just use the back-end knowledge that it exists? To find the complaining witness, or the complaining victim, more importantly, to the crime being discussed, and then, look for video, just in case, because there is, in that fruit of the poison tree concept, is also eventual discovery. If you're gonna get there anyway, it doesn't work that way.
Let's take on Rachel's question.
Okay. So Rachel 10982, will my knee surgery happen soon? If not, is it safe to schedule my shoulder surgery?
Looking at it, I feel like it does happen soon. I would say within 9 weeks. I, however, would suggest you schedule your shoulder surgery in late August. And then there's another surgery that you're going to have. Now, remember, I am not a doctor, but I think that there's a third surgery we're not looking at yet.
Okay. Now, going real quickly to Mary's comment before we move on. She points out, and it is very true, on your home network, you can restrict by MAC addresses. Which basically MAC address is part of the device itself, whether it's a physical plug networking device or a Wi-Fi device. It has a unique identifier. Now, the fundamental problem with that is called MAC address spoofing, because ultimately that ends up getting disclosed. It's something you can, in most cases, easily see. And when that occurs, effectively, it acts like the same device. We've had a lot of problems with internet and especially Wi-Fi internet security. And on the general user level, it's typically one of those features that it is a great idea. And it does add some enhanced security. But it's also, unfortunately, fairly easily thwarted.
Right.
Oh, Rachel says, both knees need to be done in my shoulder. I'm coming apart at the seams. You are not coming apart at the seams.
You're becoming bionic.
Yes, you are the bionic woman. We will build her better.
Yes.
Yes. You're the BASF of women.
Yep.
That's what's happening. Well, your doctor. You know.
No.
He didn't make you, but he's making you better.
So you'll be able to leap tall buildings, and once you lasso of truth, you can start making customers tell the truth about what they really want to hear. What they're really wanting.
Right. Well, and then there is a reality here, and I'm going to point this out. There are medical studies about and especially related to like neck and shoulder and knee. There's things that in our heads tell us we're getting older. That you have to have those replaced, or you have to have surgery on your neck, whatever. There are some studies that show that the more that a patient thinks that this is evidence that they are fragile, that they are getting old, that they are getting weak, that their body is breaking down, etc., the worse their pain levels are, the worse their mobility is, and the higher likelihood they are to decrease their function, as in they quit doing stuff because they feel old and broken, and then they actually end up sort of becoming older and broken. So realistically, if you can change the mindset, you can typically, is the idea of these research studies, is that if you can change the patient mindset, you can change the patient outcome. Or more importantly, for the patient, if you can change your mindset from the I'm old and broken and fragile and everything's falling apart, you will actually find to have a better outcome with your surgeries and with life after them. Just as a side note, I'm just putting it out there. I know how easy it is to get into that mindset. I was definitely there after the second neck surgery. I got stuck there for a while. The first one, I woke up pain-free and I felt great and I thought everything was wonderful. And honestly, Rachel, I'll try to send you over some stuff. There's a really great chiropractor who does on TikTok. There's some question about how the MRIs are being interpreted and how that data is being used against patients. That honestly, there's also patients who will never have surgery, or people that will never have surgery. They're not patients if they haven't had surgery. But there are people who end up not needing surgery that could have near identical MRIs that would show the same kind of degeneration, the same kind of features, other than like specific problems that you would have, that would fundamentally have a MRI done. If they were to have one done, there have been studies that have shown that, other than, say, not having a ruptured disc, for instance, all the same features are present. So this interpretation that doctors keep giving of, you have the joints and bones of an 80-year-old is actually very harmful to the patient. It creates this mindset of I'm old and broken, but it's also not really true. And that it's actually a big deal that doctors are doing this because they're effectively breaking their patients. I've recently stumbled upon this particular TikToker. He makes some very valid points, and he backs them all up with studies.
Right.
Oh. Mary says, Joe, you're right on point. Once with going under the knife for spinal surgery, it is crossing the Rubicon. It is. I think that's something that needs to be pointed out, is that once you enter into that realm, you typically start getting some really negative and ugly messages about your body across the board. I don't know what it is, but I had a very different experience with my first neck surgery. No one treated me like an 80-year-old who was falling apart at the seams. And so I had a neck surgery and popped right back. But second surgeon, second process, second everything was that's where all the messaging was.
Right.
And it kind of dug in there. Right. And you start thinking like that, and you start acting like that. And then you start acting like that, you start feeling more like that. And you start to kind of want to shut down. Because it makes sense. You're trying to protect yourself. You're feeling pain. Your body is, obviously telling you something's wrong. But then you start acting like an 80-year-old. You start, and when I say that, I mean a fragile 80-year-old, as in someone who really could break a hip.
Right.
Whereas the reality is you might be sitting right next to someone who has not had surgery, who doesn't have, say, a ruptured disc or a specific, knee pain problem, or shoulder pain problem that has many of the same physical, osteo features, the stenosis, the calcifications, all of that. And they're the same age as you are. They're not an 80-year-old.
No.
So it's a really damaged and broken thing that we're getting in messaging.
And honestly, challenge doctors' messaging, doctors' comments. Of course, a lot of people worship doctors. I see them as housekeepers. They're cleaning up the temple. They need to stick to cleaning up the temple, not trying to redecorate it.
Fair point. I don't know that I feel like I try to exist in the middle. I do unfortunately have the problem that when, you start kind of getting the messaging, it worms its way in. It really, truly, honestly worms its way in.
Right.
Is that you start feeling broken and damaged and everything's wrong, and that you're just this, prematurely old dude. Granted, that's... At one point in our lives, we thought we were old. That the age we are now was an old, creepy dude. It's a little weird getting there and then being like, I am not creepy.
Well, speaking of creepy, I thought we would go ahead and take on the creepy companies, shall we?
Okay.
One, I want to give a shout out to Burger King. Their trolling of Chick-fil-A is awesome. I also love that they're donating 20 cents of the profit, including on Sundays, to every sandwich sold to a charity for GVLT.
Okay, what? How are they trolling them? I'm sorry, I've missed something.
Okay,
What?
I will give you the tweet.
No, it's fine. You can just tell me. I'll believe you. I swear.
Okay, Burger King has created a chicken sandwich that looks a lot like Chick-fil-A.
Oh God, are they getting waffle fries next?
I hope so. Because, I came up in the 90s. I have never ate at a Chick-fil-A in my life.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? I have never, ever went there. I will not eat at a bigoted place. So, Burger King's Twitter, they started trolling Chick-fil-A.
Oh God, are they as good as Wendy's though?
I don't
like Wendy's social media.
Uh-huh.
What? Fired her or hired her?
Hired her.
Okay.
So they've created a sandwich that has a special sauce. It's a deep fried chicken sandwich breaded with pickles. Burger King continues to wedge into the chicken sandwich wars. There isn't a war there. Their sandwiches are good. But they literally went after, during Pride Month, even on Sundays, look, blink, blink. Your chicken sandwich cravings can do some good. We're making a donation to HRC for every chicken sandwich sold.
Aw, very cool. I'm liking that. But yeah. But you still have to, like Rachel points out, Wendy's donates to the Republican Party, but you gotta love their social media manager. Forget Wendy's the company. Right. I now have to divorce them. Their social media manager is amazing.
Oh,
they have tore down and thrown down.
I think tomorrow we'll have to eat Burger King because we can't eat currently at our Burger King because it's going through renovations, and I don't want to take the risk of latex.
Yeah, especially while they're painting. Hi, I have allergies.
Yes. All right. But it caused me to look and see which, and actually Rolling Stone released it, so good for Rolling Stone. Mm-hmm. These other companies that pull out the rainbow flag for June and then goes away. Some of them might astound you. AT&T, one of the worst offenders.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Ooh.
Yes. They say they include a wide range of LGBT topics. However, they continue to donate to Turtle Mitch.
Yeah.
Yep. All right. Moving forward on the continual pains in the neck. Oh, come on. There was AT&T, Walmart, which when is Walmart not being a problem?
Apparently Coca-Cola?
Yeah, Coca-Cola.
Yeah. Anheuser-Busch. Yeah, there's a few.
Right.
Yeah, AT&T donated $56,000 to Mitch McConnell's 2020 campaign.
Mm-hmm.
But they have a great Pride Twitter banner.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's a lot of, and this has been a long time problem.
Right.
And it kind of, there's no easy way on this one. We wanted support, and originally this started with like some hidden things.
Mm-hmm.
Subaru has been doing ads for decades.
Mm-hmm.
That target the LGBTQ community. They were subtle though.
Mm-hmm.
Like the average straight person looking at that ad would have never caught it.
Right.
Or wouldn't have thought twice about it. Like,
right.
you know. and stick.
Mm-hmm.
But there were little subtle things in the ads, like the license plates on the cars,
Mm-hmm.
that ultimately, really caught the attention,
Mm-hmm.
and created inclusion,
Right.
or at least acknowledged that, hey, we're inclusive.
Right.
And then somewhere along the way,
Mm-hmm.
it morphed into, the Pride Month thing
Mm-hmm.
that so many companies do, which is they roll out their rainbow flag and talk about their inclusivity and their non-discrimination and do some lovely advertising.
Right.
And then shut up about it until next Pride Month.
Mm-hmm.
And those are the companies that are fundamentally problematic.
Right.
Anyway.
Mm-hmm.
But then you also have companies that effectively run two forms of advertising.
Mm-hmm.
In what's effectively known as gay baiting.
Mm-hmm.
Which is they run very targeted ads towards the gay community.
Right.
And they support events, and they do provide, support to these events. They really do. But at the same time, they're not going to risk anything towards the rest of their customer base.
Right.
Like, it's kind of like, they're 1 foot in the closet, at least long enough to sell us stuff, and then still maintain the other foot out of the closet to make sure they don't tick off the rest of their customer base.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and fundamentally with those companies, you never know if there's, a controversy created over it, whether they'll just, slam the door.
Right.
And stay on the, keeping their majority customer base happy, which is the problem.
Right.
That they're happy for gay dollars, but they're not going to risk the rest of their business for it. Like, how committed are they?
Mm-hmm.
And it's weird as a community to feel exploited for your money, but not know if someone actually gives a shit.
Right. Well, and that's when, I also start looking at who is maybe talking Pride Month, maybe, posting on Pride Month. And, it's kind of sad. We have Elizabeth Warren, who has made multiple posts. We've had Nancy Pelosi making multiple posts. Little senators like in New Jersey and Georgia making multiple posts.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what 3 senators and representatives who have not made a post? Not one word.
Okay.
Take a guess.
I don't even know where to start.
I don't know. Maybe the 3 supposed to be representing us in Congress?
Fair. But at the same time, I think it's, you could also point out that other than what we're doing right here, right now, I haven't posted anything on my business page.
I have. And continue to do so.
Well, but are you talking about to my business page?
Not to your
business page. Your business page, right?
Yes.
I don't feel like in that regard, I'm not going to exploit that. Like, that's where I'm at professionally. Like, I'm not just going to jump on the bandwagon for the month.
Right.
Like, I'm here 365 days a year and an extra one in February every once in a while. This is my business.
Right. And their business is supposed to be representing us as lawmakers.
Mm-hmm.
Not one word about what they're trying to do, what they would like to see done. Not one word on the Equality Act, which is sitting on the Senate still.
Mm-hmm.
Not one word about anything for the constituents. So here's my question. Is that not And in my view, companies, we know that they're slimy. They do what they needed to get their marketing. That's why I'm not buying a Subaru. I won't even look at them. That's why, Walmart's least popular place for me to go. I'm never going to Chick-fil-A's. I don't care if they fire the manager, open on Sundays, and repaint it rainbow. Really upset with Oreo and their bull crap.
But fundamentally, a lot of companies do this. It is unfortunately marketing.
Right.
And the realities of marketing. That you just kind of exploit the interests of people. Fundamentally, these are target demographics to them. And it's the same thing across the board. There's a lot of money spent for Super Bowl ads that will do everything they can to target sports fans in any way they can. And there's been a fair number of controversies in that. In what messaging networks would allow. That despite the fact that a company went through the effort of creating an ad that, say, was inclusive of a different community,
right,
and tried to create visibility for that community, and then put it out in the middle of the Super Bowl, it got rejected, or there was a massive question as to whether it would be allowed.
Right.
Versus, say, a company like GoDaddy. And I'm calling them out specifically because they do a Super Bowl ad. They did, or had for many years. I don't watch the Super Bowl anymore. I don't live with anyone who watches the Super Bowl. Right. So I don't see the ads and I don't go specifically looking for them. But they used to do one every single year that was... as basically as sexual as primetime television would allow,
right?
As explicit as humanly possible. That would, honestly, if you look at the ad, it took a really insulting view of its audience. Like, if you sit down and really think about it, it was really insulting to the audience. That they assumed would see the ad and buy their services. That they needed a half-naked woman to sexualize the idea of domain registration and web hosting. That it was kind of ugly. When you really sit down and think about it, like, they weren't touting their wonderful services, or not that they have any. But they weren't trying to tout, their services or what they provided or anything else. They were using straight up sex to sell, which, yes, Mary, I was getting there. But that's all they were doing. It's an ugly, ugly place in marketing. That they're assuming in many cases, a very easily exploited market or demographic that wants this.
Right.
And realistically, when you get into sales and marketing, it's an ugly place. Filled with, effectively psychological warfare.
Right.
False promises, vague wording, and creating, a near salivating interest in something that someone may not even need.
Right.
Ultimately, all you care about is sales.
Right.
It's an ugly, ugly, ugly place sometimes.
Right.
Where it's not about the product and how great it is. It's about how great the marketing team is at convincing you it's a great product.
Right.
And that you need it.
Right.
And we've seen this for everything from like skin whitening to children's toys to teeth whitening to, every dick pill on the market. You know, marketing's an ugly place.
It's marketing.
Well, it's not just that it's marketing, it's psychological warfare.
It's marketing.
Yeah.
There's a reason you take psychology in the first year of college and marketing in your second year of college. It's just psychology 2.0. What gets me is where the dollars spent, how they go after the dollars. And what's even worse is where our representatives are in this state.
Mm-hmm.
And how behind the times they are.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And that's something we as a community need to start going, okay. Who's going to support us?
I'm so sorry. I am so sorry. You were talking about the 3 representatives for West Virginia.
Exactly. With one of their seats on the chopping block.
I took that a whole different way.
Right.
Like, I thought you were talking about Mayor Petey and a couple other senators. Okay, sorry.
Not secretaries. Mayor Petey isn't a senator. He is a secretary on the sitting cabinet.
Okay, well, I was still having a moment as I was sitting here going, but it's still government representative. That you would assume would be, yeah. But anyway, sorry, I had a whole dumb moment there.
I know. So if you see them at Pride events, or you see Republicans at Pride events, because there always are some log cabin Republicans or whatever, ask them what the representatives are doing.
Yeah, that's typically an ugly experience. I'll just go ahead and tell you now, talking to a log cabin Republican is always going to be an ugly experience.
Right.
It's one of those moments that will mentally hurt. Because there's this, but it also speaks to the bigger problem that we are facing in the community. Which is this kind of weird thing that's happened over the last couple of decades. And I'm not saying they weren't always here. They were always here. But in the last couple of decades, there's become this kind of new gay white man, especially, that is very fucking Republican.
Right. Well,
and it's like
my view and my point of view on it. We've gotten lazy in the past 10 years. Point blank lazy. We're not as politically involved. We've got little Twinkies running around, stopping in at Chick-fil-A. James Charles, for one.
Well, again, to each their own. It is very hard in many cases to know all the politics of everything you eat, drink, buy, use, etc. That's a very prominent one.
Yeah.
But even we face the problem with, say, Hobby Lobby.
Right.
Like, we still end up shopping there.
Yes, but we make it hurt them.
Well, and we try to avoid them as much as we can.
Right.
Yeah, we were talking about West Virginia's 3 representatives who are obviously quiet as hell.
No, they're loudly talking about how everything's been raised 8%. Duh. And, we were talking about this earlier. Yeah, it's been raised 8%. But also, we have suppliers not shipping to West Virginia.
Yeah, we have a lot of empty shelves.
Yeah.
And a lot of inter-store trading.
Right.
That's trying to keep those stores afloat.
Right.
So yeah, West Virginia has a whole series of issues right there. But more specifically talking about the 3 representatives, and the fact that they've been silent through Pride Month. And will continue to be. They know their base. They've met their base.
Well, their base is now affecting their corporate companies in the state. Because point blank, I wonder if a Democrat representative like New York, Mary's in New York. New York, have you had any empty shelves there this past month? Like when you go shopping, like fully empty shelves. Ohio, Rachel's in the building, if she still is. How's your shopping experience? How's those shelves in Ohio? See, New York, no.
Yeah, no empty shelves in New York. And meanwhile, Rachel points out, I work in a business setting, but I do make it apparent that I'm an ally for anyone I would encounter without screaming it. Always have something on my person that reflects, if you know, you know, and I am a safe and welcoming person.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome.
Right.
You know, I figure my person pretty much points that out. For the most part. It's hard to know me for very long without figuring some things out.
Mm-hmm. But, you know, my point being is I wonder if the shortages, i.e. a store not getting a delivery of anything for 3 weeks, isn't related to some of the stuff that the Republicans are pouring in corporate America's going, yeah, we've got stores in you. We're stuck in contracts in you. You want to run your state like that? Well, that's fine. We have a shortage.
I think there can be some degree of that. I can also point out that in terms of marketability, West Virginia really isn't like your best customer base.
Mm-hmm.
Like because point blank, the financially, what it takes to move product all the way through West Virginia, let's say Dollar General is a good example. Their Dollar Generals are the new satellite dish. The state, what used to be the state flour in West Virginia, the 10-foot satellite dish. Dollar Generals are the new it. They are yellow and they are everywhere, and it's a field of yellow because a lot of these Dollar General stores are serving as a primary supermarket and store for a lot of the communities they're in. Like this is where they're shopping.
Right.
We have many. They have popped up everywhere. But the cost to move product to those stores through this state is immense.
Yeah.
You know, it is a very time-consuming, money-draining expense. If you're a company looking at, you know, your utilization of truckers, a trucker shortage, and, you know, all the costs associated with distribution, putting West Virginia lower on the list makes good business sense, but it's detrimental to the communities.
Yeah.
And it's going to have a kickoff reaction. That as more of the Dollar Generals and, you know, only $1 and, you know, the stores you wouldn't typically think of as a grocery store, or again, you know, typically that's not the first place you would think of when I say name a grocery store. But for a lot of the communities they're in, this is what their community is living off of.
Right.
You know, canned peaches and, you know, some frozen dinners, milk and eggs, you know, some flour and sugar. Like that's it, you know, as in whatever you can find in those stores. That's what these communities functionally live off of. Like that's their diet, because that's what they can get to.
Right.
But what happens is as those stores run into shelf shortages, as in there's less product on the shelves, those customers are then going to be pushed into having to shop elsewhere, which is in turn going to push them into the regular grocery stores or other Dollar Generals, Family Dollars, etc., further depleting supplies.
Right.
So then it becomes a cross problem that all of the shelves start going empty because you have more people shopping at places they don't typically do the majority of their shopping.
Right. But, you know, and these store managers are being told Well, there's just a supply shortage. We just can't get to you. We just don't have that. But Walmart's is running in Little Oak Hill here.
Mm-hmm.
Our Walmart is getting 3 trucks a day.
Mm-hmm.
Every day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. They're getting shipped 3 trucks a day.
Mm-hmm.
But the Family Dollar and the Dollar General and the Only a Dollar can't. What's the difference here? What's the competitive difference?
Well, with Walmart, you fundamentally Walmart, I will say, has spent a lot of time, money, and effort on their predictive modeling, which is effectively what Mary's talking about with computer models. And I think that those models are typically more sensitive. But I also think that for the other companies, I don't think most of them are quite as or anywhere near as large as Walmart. They don't have the same, buying power, bargaining power, etc. I don't think they're there, just by sheer size alone. So I think they're making different decisions to control costs. Now, I will say that I'm sure that in those 3 trucks a day, Walmart is already picked up on the shift occurring. That everyone's going to get pushed back to Walmart, or to Kroger and Aldi's and whatever,
right?
Your primary grocery stores. That as these companies reduce their shipping, and there's less product on the shelf and more dissatisfied people, that they are going to end up spreading into the cities. That, if you're living, 20 miles away from a grocery store, you now drive 20 miles to the grocery store instead of going to, a Dollar General 2 miles away.
Right.
But they don't, honestly, you can't see a demand that doesn't involve a sale. So Walmart is going to pick up on this faster because this is where people are going to end up.
Right.
As customers get frustrated and it's like, I just want a gallon of milk. Okay. As they hit that point of, I just want a gallon of milk.
Right.
Walmart's going to see that and keep responding to it. And their model is going to change over time as to, okay, how many gallons of milk do we need to put in that store? Because we just sold 300 gallons of milk today. And if they keep seeing that and that's their entire stock, again, I'm making broad assumptions here, like it's an example. But okay, every day you're selling that last 300th gallon of milk at like noon. Okay, we need more milk in the store. Like Walmart's going to see that. What is fundamentally happening with stores when you don't have product on the shelf, you don't see demand.
Right.
Like, again, if it doesn't generate a sale, you don't see the transaction because the transaction didn't occur. So you don't see the problem.
Right.
And it becomes very easy to say these are underperforming stores and send them even less.
Right.
Because their sales are now down. I think we're going to end up seeing a lot of these stores close.
Yeah.
It is fundamentally what's going to end up happening is the stores are going to close because they're hard to service. This is and it's not unique to everywhere, but West Virginia suffers it primarily, as in so much of West Virginia is hard to service.
Right.
It is hard to get there. There are, literal logistics issues trying to just get a truck places. There's the time to get a truck there.
Well, this is my problem. Walmart's just farther than the one store I was at, and I have a picture I may post it in the barista's chat. Closer to the interstate, easier to get to. Let's see what else. The other differences. There's a Sheets straight down the road. They get supplies every night. You see their little truck pull up. They're loading off everything.
Mm-hmm.
Neil, where do we have a Costco at?
Probably in Morgantown.
Yeah, Neil, where is Costco? I'll call you out on that one because I thought I knew every stores in this state and where they're at because Costco's would be a good
I think we have one in Morgantown.
Hell,
now I gotta look.
Yeah. But no, Walmart's, just looking at it, Walmart's maintained their staff. Walmart's maintained their people. Walmart's maintained their trucking centers. Kroger's maintained their staff, their trucking centers. Now, is there a meat shortage? Yeah. Have we noticed it that much? No.
We do not have a Costco, from what I can tell.
Right.
I'm looking at a whole map. We have them all around us.
Right.
Like, there are parts of West Virginia where you could easily get to one. But, yeah.
Yeah, Costco hasn't entered our state. We have Sam's Clubs. We are Sam's Club territory.
We have Sam's.
Right. Read Shannon's comment. It's too long for me to decode quickly.
Okay. Shannon says, I had a similar talk with my daughter when the towns next to us had their power go out. So the stores had to shut down. And our local stores were out of a lot of what we normally buy because 2 other towns worth of people were coming to shop. Sorry, we have comments coming in and I lost that one. Where the people were coming to shop in our local shops. She got an understanding of how food deserts work because of that. And that's exactly the point I'm making, is West Virginia already has a food desert problem.
Right.
This is what it's known as. I basically, as did Shannon to her daughter, explain the food desert problem. Is some areas are just too rural or there's not enough people to warrant a store. Or not a major, like you can't plunk a Kroger in there and make money. You're going to be throwing away stock. Or it would be the world's smallest Kroger, i.e. it would be a Kroger the size of a Dollar General. Like just for comparison's sake.
Right.
Dollar General can pull this off when trucking is cheap, when gas is cheap, and when they're the only game in town.
Right.
But as, parts of that start to change and there's a shortage in trucking, which is going to lead to higher rates of pay, and gas is also going up, fuel costs are going up, it becomes harder and harder to service those stores financially. It's going to drain the company more. Right. When those things are cheap, it's easier and easier to service those stores. But every time we see an increase in one of the associated logistics costs, you're going to start seeing a decrease. Because, and I would also point out that when you talk about Walmart getting 3 trucks a day, that's potentially 3 whole tractor trailers going to one store and unloading sellable product.
Right.
Versus you may see one truck servicing multiple Dollar Generals with just-in-time inventory.
Right. All right. So I'm grabbing Mary's question before it disappears on us.
Okay.
Mary's question, 11/28/57. Will I receive a closer relationship with my younger brother, Jay? I believe he's working in New York on a project. I feel like there's a transformation there with the relationship because there's issues. Looking at it, I think that he does try to build a relationship, but you guys have to learn how to be friends first. Okay? So the issues have to be sorted out first, and then you're able to form a relationship. Do I think it'll be on this project? Probably not. Do I think it'll be here soon? Yes. But
okay. Oh, I was going to point out, Ashley was saying Puerto Rico has plenty of food deserts, and she remembers living in one. And that's ultimately, like, that is a very good example of how food or how any kind of sales desert occurs. Alaska, Hawaii, Puerto Rico, places that are harder to get to are going to suffer logistical, are going to be more susceptible to the cost of logistics to get the product there. So you'll have periods of feast and famine. You'll have limited shopping opportunities. You will face higher prices just because it is hard to get that product to a place that's hard to get to. It all influences the cost of goods and whether they exist for you to buy or not. It's pure, simple, old school, bottom of the ledger. How do we support, selling a product that costs almost as much as the product retails for to get the product to the consumer?
Right.
You either have to raise the price or not.
Right.
And then Ashley has a question too. So yeah.
Yep. Ashley has a question, but I wanted to talk about what I basically fell into the Neil's comment about grow local. Yes, grow local is a good thing. Buy local is a great thing. The other side of this is what we're seeing I'm seeing, because, my interaction with my local community is when I go do laundry. Apparently, I got all the shindigs. People are starting to run buyers clubs and load up, take a list of everything they need, and go out of state and bring it back. And then divide it up.
And Neil brings up the important question. So the question becomes, how do you make local supply affordable for the poor? And the reality is, no one's trying to answer the question. That's the cold, hard reality. Is that diversity of product and getting that to work in rural areas has never been a concern. No one is working on that.
Right.
And quite frankly, what that has been fulfilled by is FedEx, USPS, and UPS through online shopping.
Yep.
And that's for those who can even afford to do that in the first place.
Right.
So, okay.
Yeah. And he points out that most folks can't afford to shop at the farmer's market anymore. No. I can remember buying grocery bags of corn, unhusked, and a lot of people have lost the ability to remember how to process things and break them down. But I remember, buying contractors' bags of fresh grown corn for $20. You can't find that anymore.
All right.
Yeah. All right. So Ashley's got a question. Let's take that on.
Okay. Ashley, 82696. Are things perking up soon? I'm still feeling really blue.
Ashley, you're still needing a lot of sun, honey. Yeah, I do feel things perk up. They get better. There's a fresh start here. Things get more comfortable. You've got to do your Earth Mama thing. Get out there, find the sun, find the energy. And then, start looking at what your goals are, where you're headed. Where are you making the small progress towards them? Okay. The feeling of very blue, and it's just a sluggish feeling. It will go away as we move out of Mercury retrograde. Right. Buying buying and slaughtering houses. I think we're going to see a lot more of that. I think that we're going to see a lot more of us skipping the store and going straight to the farmer.
I could see that being a very important shift too.
Yeah.
Because generally, and I'm speaking about demographically, the continuous 48 and mostly cities. We have grown up with this idea of buy it as you need it,
Right.
or shopping at most maybe a week or two ahead.
Right.
I think that right now that the more this changes, the more we're going to move back to a long, kind of play the long game.
Right.
That, you'll see the resurgence of canning and a resurgence in large deep freezes.
Yeah.
That allow you as a consumer to take advantage of big sales.
Right.
Or best pricing or high availability
Right.
over time.
Yeah. It's a lack of self-reliance, but it's a lack of self-reliance we got comfortable in. And I think 2020 showed us not. I mean, I've expanded our food storage, and I want to continue to expand our food storage. But even like the houses aren't built for this. This minimal housing that a lot of people have wasn't built for long-term food storage, short-term food storage.
Yeah, the tiny house movement is codependent upon the idea that you have the ability to buy what you need for today and tomorrow at most. Because what you fundamentally see in a lot of the tiny houses is either the owner's going to have to eat out all the time,
right?
And so they're storing milk for cereal,
right?
And a few snacks,
right?
Or they're doing, basically buy it, store it till you're ready to cook it tonight. Just immediate use, in and out. Basically, a just in time level of inventory of things that they have to cook for this meal.
Right.
So yeah, I appreciate the tiny house movement. I appreciate the idea of it. And to some degree, I even appreciate the lifestyle theory. But it's very, very, very codependent on having immediate, continuous access to everything you need.
But here's the other thing, and this has been going on since, well, I don't know, the house was built in what, 62 in Princeton?
64.
So this has been going on a good 60 years. That house did not have long-term food storage.
No, it was well,
as it
technically
was built.
No, as it was built, no. But it was a modern house for the time. It was reflective of the environment it was built in,
right? And
the ideas it was built around. Like its current modernity was grocery stores were a thing. You really weren't going to be keeping more than a week's worth of anything. And it was fundamentally meant for about 3 to 5 people. And I'm talking about children in that.
Yeah, because it was meant for like 2 adults.
Well, that's what I'm saying. 2 adults plus up to 3 kids. Like you could and I think my parents did technically had 3 kids at the same time in that house. Right. But I mean, that was kind of its fundamental limit. Like that 4th kid was going to start to get to be a bit much.
Right.
Well, and Neil, I understand that because Neil points out I would disagree. The tiny house movement in and of itself has the same potential as long as you have the space to grow or raise your own food. That's where but that still fundamentally becomes the same thing. Is that you will always have a continuous access to the things you need, and or you're going to have a separate storage space. Because at some point, you're going to max out in, say, a 600, 500 square foot space, how much food and, toilet paper and laundry supplies and yada, 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 you can actually bulk store before you have to move into a separate space, or you have to have space like a root cellar. to do this with.
Right.
And that's fine, but it's still in a lot when you're looking at more traditional housing, you typically go a little further if you have a basement, if you have a garage, if you have, some of these other spaces, or if you're, a single person or a couple in a 3-bedroom house, you can reallocate how you use that space. When you start getting into the smaller spaces, either you've pre-planned for that, which is great, awesome, and wonderful. But if you're talking about more of the tiny house movement that's meant to have wheels and go anywhere, if you are living that dream, the nomadic lifestyle, that is all codependent on, you're not going to need to store that much stuff. That you would be more likely to buy, twin packs of paper towels, 4 packs of toilet paper, and, pretty much today and tomorrow's necessities.
Right.
Like milk and eggs and whatever. You're buying small quantity. Like a lot of the ones that I've seen, that without getting into a separate space, you're not going to have room for a deep freeze. That's going to be a really big ask in that level of space. To go, okay, where do we put a deep freeze in here? How do we run that? Or if you're canning, where are you going to store all this in that space? And I'm not saying these aren't cleverly built, but if you're looking at being mobile, being nomadic with it, that starts to create a lot of issues.
Right.
That you're not going to be able to just pick up and move if you have all this, food storage. You're increasing your vehicle weight, or the towing, the weight of what you're towing, the more stuff you put in there. And additionally facing the issue of, okay, now how do we keep all the glass from breaking?
Right. Well, and that's why I was talking about just looking at our little town and some of the things that have occurred over the past couple months. Here's the basis of it. There is a group of women whose husbands work together. They shop together. They apparently do laundry together because they ain't doing their laundry at their house. Quite frankly, it's too dirty to them. They make them strip off at the back door. And now they've got moved into planning shopping trips. Who's got the biggest car? Who can steal the husband's truck? Whatever. And they're pulling their money together and going out of state to get supplies. And I'm like, why? And then they're like, because we can't get what we need here. Yeah. The Real Housewives of, it's more like the true mafia of Oak Hill.
Yeah. Well, at the same time, it's not a new concept.
Right.
It's a very old concept in a new context.
Right.
That is occurring for slightly different reasons. But fundamentally, it's the same idea.
Right.
Is, a community forming out of, different needs and a difference within themselves. Like surrounded, as it surrounds employment. And, the issues that they face.
Right.
That's fundamentally where it comes in.
Right.
I mean,
I don't believe they are. Of course, I'm just there, and apparently I'm the one that had bleach, so that made me a friend. I mean, that's where we're at in these little small West Virginia communities. Who's got bleach? Who has this? Who has that? Who can trade for this? Who will trade for that? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I mean, hey, it works.
Yeah.
You know, and it is one of those things that you do have to consider when you're living in a smaller area.
Mm-hmm.
And the more rural you get, the more you are, in some ways, codependent upon your neighbors.
Mm-hmm.
As in, you can make or break a rural community
Mm-hmm.
with how well you know, manage to live next to others.
Right.
That this idea, and it's one you've had, is I want to move to the middle of nowhere, 5-mile long driveway just to get to me to think about approaching me.
Right.
The problem is when you do that, and you have, you know, a neighbor 5 miles this way, 5 miles that way, and 5 miles in each direction, you become very codependent upon those neighbors. Because if anything goes wrong, 5 miles this way, 5 miles that way, 5 miles this way, whatever direction, is your first opportunity to interact with another human being. So if, you know, you get to the end of your driveway, and or not, you go out, you need your car battery jumped, like your car won't start. You get to the end of your driveway and run out of gas. That's a big important thing. Like those people become your salvation, or the guy who flips you off and keeps going while laughing their ass off at your stupidity and bad luck.
Right.
Like that's where that becomes, is you either integrate really well and you're somewhat codependent upon those people, or you're screwed.
Right.
Like if you become the town pariah, you're screwed.
Right. But no, I am very much still having that dream of buying 10 acres, putting my house in the middle of the 10 acres, and a driveway that you have to park, get it on an ATV, and then come to the house.
And I'm just sitting here going, and apparently this is his plan after I die.
You have learned I have no problem having multiple houses.
I'm just saying, I've kind of not to that extent. I've sort of had that experience. And the idea that I have to get in a car and drive for 20, 30 minutes just because I forgot to buy sugar. It's like, no, I am not that good. But that was Moncove Lake, and the property that my grandparents had there is that
overpopulated.
Do what now? Well, it's overpopulated now, but back then it was very much that way, and a lot of the people there weren't nearly as many full-time residents. And so your closest shopping opportunity from Moncove Lake was Union, West Virginia,
right,
which had a little IGA, and I mean little. It was barely bigger than a Dollar General. And I'm talking a standard Dollar General, not a Dollar General Market. It probably was just a touch smaller than a Dollar General Market. But yeah, it's kind of, it was a thing. That, you know, every trip we went, Mom either got groceries on the way in, or she had to get up the next morning, and before she could even have coffee,
right,
she had to drive like all the way back to Union to buy groceries to come all the way back with, and then cook and make coffee while cleaning. It was like, Mom never got a vacation is what it worked out to.
Yeah.
She worked the whole time.
I'm watching like StarTech and seeing what, not, is it StarTech? No. What is Bezos's internet company called?
Oh, once you say that, I can never think of it.
All right, Bezos's internet company starts something another. I'm watching it because right now the only restraint for me going anywhere I want to go is internet and power.
Well, it's Elon Musk.
Yeah.
Starlink?
Yeah, Starlink. There we go. Yeah, Starlink.
Yeah.
As soon as that comes up and we see how the speeds are, then I can begin looking for my remote property.
And that handles one of the many issues there, though.
Uh-huh.
Like, again, if something happens, because you do become slightly more vulnerable when you are a good distance from your neighbors.
Mm-hmm.
You do. Like, things happen. Mm-hmm. And if you're in a remote area to start with, because that's generally where property is that big, some simple things can turn into major events.
Right.
That, your literal lack of proximity to others will afford a lot of privacy.
Mm-hmm.
But that can also be an issue, and especially as we age. That's if you're living in downtown New York and you have a heart attack, kind of hard to die from it. But if you're further out from civilization and you don't have a major, community of people that you daily work with or that you interact with constantly, you could have a heart attack and not be discovered for a week or a month.
Oh, I think that we would have a search party if I didn't post daily, okay?
Either that or a bunch of people that go, oh, thank God he got tired of this. Like, he was blowing up my feed.
Yeah.
You do. You have to plan better, and you do have to learn to deal with those things. But I'm just pointing them out. Yeah. Is that, like, all of it requires, some form of backup community. I'm just saying, downtown New York, you have a heart attack in a diner, no one's going to leave you there for a week. But if you don't have, like, this really good support network built up around you, you could, in that nice rural place, have so much privacy that you could drop dead and no one's going to know. We're being told to smile a lot.
Yes.
Was it that bad? Did I dash your hopes and dreams?
You ain't dashing my hopes and dreams, honey. I done told you.
Yeah. Well, and Mary does point out that FiOS will be expanded in the next 5 years, but therein lies the rub. It'll be expanded in cities first. It's going to be a while before that becomes cost effective to move into rural areas. That's, again, it goes back to, like, basic business. If it costs you more to install it, which right now it would, if it costs more than you can make from it, then why would you go to the trouble? Like, I'll put it in plain basic terms for me. I am sure that we could have a viewer in Alaska that is having a computer problem right now. That, I could easily fix. Okay. Let's say it's something like they just need Windows reinstalled, nice little data backup. And, I either have to charge more to do it. We have to deal with mailing the computer back and forth. Or I've got to go there, or they have to come here. Okay, with some of those options, it could be cheaper to just go buy a new computer.
Right.
Like, literally, it would be cheaper to fix a problem. Buy a new one.
Right.
Because I can't drive there. Like, as a business, I cannot drive to Alaska and make money. I can't even fly to Alaska and make money.
I disagree with that.
Unless I bill the client for the travel.
I was going to say, I disagree with that. We can go to Alaska. We have no problem going to Alaska. Alaskan customers, please contact us. Yes, there is a fee for travel. We will debate it and get it down. And while you're there, go ahead and collect your friends up because we can actually pull that travel bill.
Well, but still, fundamentally, there's more we have to do there.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's not that it's impossible that I will ever work on, an Alaska resident's computer.
Right.
It's not something I can do tomorrow at 3:00.
Right.
Unless it's something I can remote in and do.
Well, no, we could do it tomorrow at 3:00. I will have to call U.S. Airways and see what time Delta pulls out of here, but we can make that happen.
I'm just saying, I don't think that the travel expenses would be worth it for the end consumer.
Depends.
I would have big issues
on it.
Well, true. But I'm just saying, I would have a hard time taking that one and being like, yes, I will do that for you. My first reaction would be like, hold on, let me grab the internet and find someone local. Like, there's got to be someone more local than I am. It's not that I wouldn't ever want to help them. I would think the better way I could help them is find someone they can go to more easily. That's more accessible to them. That, like, the problem of geolocation isn't such an impediment.
I don't even think that the geolocation is an impediment. We have passports. We will travel, guys.
I think you just want to hit the West Coast. I'm with Mary.
I've been to the West Coast. I have seen a lot of the West Coast. I have thought about moving out to the West Coast. There's only one problem with me moving to the West Coast. One, my sleep schedule gets really on key with everybody around there, so there's more people. The other problem with me moving to the West Coast is I have this daunting, lovely little lady that has to come in tow with me.
What? Are you talking about Prissy?
No, I'm talking about Mother.
Oh, yeah, there's that issue. I wasn't even talking about
100 miles of her.
I'm not even talking about moving. I'm just talking about the realities. Or scratch that. I was talking about, like, it sounds like you just want to take a trip, like a vacation.
Yesterday.
I know. Don't we all?
Yeah, me and Mary enjoyed a lot, Seattle together. Yeah, Mama night. She has to be in tow. She has to be within 100 miles of me to make everybody kosher for me to move West Coast.
Mm-hmm.
Take off for a trip to Alaska. Clients, you need us? Call us. We'll create a corporate event for it.
Yeah, I'm thinking that's like maybe one day. Like to get enough people together for that to be economically feasible.
Okay, so travel is $428. So then we take over the computer repairs. All you need is 10 clients. We can do computer repair in 3 days on 10 clients. Have it out and done, and all of Alaska is back up and running.
I'm sorry, did you just say that all of Alaska was 10 people?
No, I'm saying that our minimum would be 10 people.
Yes, but you just said all of Alaska would be back up and running.
Especially that little town.
And Greensboro's not that much of a problem.
No, we're planning a trip to Greensboro. As soon as things open up and get comfortable, we have to go down to Greensboro. He needs to go to Little Russia, and I need to have the little pastry things. So Greensboro is a trip that's going to be fun.
Oh, goodness. Oh, which pastry things?
The ones we even brought back to West Virginia.
Oh, the empanadas. Okay, that wasn't Greensboro, honey. I keep trying to tell you. We didn't go to Greensboro.
We went to Westover. Big woohoo.
We went to Wake Forest.
Yeah, again, Little Russia.
You really hate that apartment complex.
Yes, I do. With a passion.
Well, no, it depends upon which mountain. Oh, Neil's like, we can't get you on the mountain. Sorry, I thought Ashley had said that. I apologize.
No, you're going to be getting us up on the mountains here soon. It is planned. It just has to, everything has to align. And you have to understand that we are going out of service. And within this past week, we have been providing customers hand-to-hand service every day. As soon as it cools down, we'll be doing that.
Yeah, sorry, no, I misconnected which mountain it was. No, here's the logistics issue, though. For me to go to Greensboro is I-77 to I-74 to I-40.
Mm-hmm.
I know this trip. I've done this trip. It is all paved. It is beautiful. And if I want the scenic route, I can take 52 to I-40.
Mm-hmm.
And it's beautiful. And since I no longer have a 5-speed nor the stupidity to wear a pair of Birkenstocks while driving it, I will not end up with blistered heels. Side note, that's how I started the first day after high school. As in I graduated and moved to Greensboro. And my dad put me on 52, and that's a very, very, very bad story. But it is all paved. It is all very easy to get to. AAA will find me easily if I have any issues. However, going up a mountain in West Virginia in Princess, my 2-wheel drive Kia Soul
does wonderful.
It does well.
She did wonderful. She outperformed the Suzu and the truck.
Well, I'm just saying. Unfortunately. She's not a Jeep.
Debatable.
Like, this is not this Jeep. I can't take it off-roading.
Debatable.
No, one, I'm not putting a lift kit on it, and two, I don't even.
Right.
Yeah, it made it to Glade Creek.
Yeah, it made it through Glade Creek. It made it through Moncove Lake. Like, our girl does decent. I'm not going to say she does great. She doesn't have the power I need for interstate, but that's okay. It could be a good thing. But she does off-roading good.
Brenda says anything can off-road if you want it.
Exactly.
That was my sister's one of my sister's reactions when her neighbor got a Mercedes for a farm. And I'm talking about like the old school, like 80s Mercedes sedan. Yeah, those are built like little German tanks. Well, yeah. Plus, he also screams when I really let rip on gravel.
That's because you don't have the pedal where it needs to go. Give me a set of controls.
Oh, come on. We only fishtailed a few times.
God. She came up there perfectly fine.
Not Glade Creek. Not Glade Creek. I'm talking about Moncove Lake. When I took that gravel curve and...
I was more happy with your driving on Moncove Lake and Glade Creek than I was in you in Greensboro. You're not aggressive enough in Greensboro.
It takes a while to get back in that mindset.
Yeah.
Like, I get used to up here when people, like, know what a stop sign or a red light means. Versus, getting back into the city where it's like, God, I have 5 lanes of idiots beside me. And another, at least 2 over there that could come across the median at any moment. Yeah, it's a little different for me.
No, we don't need to put a lifter on the Kia. Aeson just needs to go ahead and get his Ford Explorer.
No, dear. She said limiter. As in slow it down.
It already has one.
Not if you drive it right.
It does too.
No, it is limited. Like, it is not built for, like, it is not a sports car. It is not a speed demon. It's got a fair amount of power for its size. I love it. But, yeah, it has limits.
Now, I don't need a brake, Shannon. I do not need a brake in my passenger's mentality. I need a 5-speed and a clutch and a gas pedal. He can have all the brakes he wants.
Are you trying to say I drive too slow?
I'm trying to say we go into the city and I'm expecting to be rear-ended.
What? I like speed limits. I do them. It's only a problem when no one else does.
This is why at the last rest stop into Morgantown, I'm like, honey, can I drive?
Fair. Yeah, the USA should build an Autobahn, no speed limits.
Especially from the Mississippi River to LA. There is no need for a speed limit between that area of the country.
And I'll let you handle that comment. Good one. I applaud it. That was good.
He goes into the city and all of a sudden he sees 25 and 35 speed limit signs and he thinks that's what everyone around him is doing, especially in Morgantown.
It's what they're supposed to be doing.
Baloney. Those people don't drop below 45 through most of the traffic.
I know. That's a problem. And it's their problem, not mine. I follow the speed limit. I hate tickets.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, my last one started with my name's D.W. Pruitt. And I can, you can either tell me what you did or I can arrest you for what you did.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I haven't sped since. I was scared to death of being found dead in a ditch after that officer interaction.
Please. The last time I had an officer interaction was, did you change your phone number? Yes, 20 years ago. Here's the new one.
See, I don't have that luck. Like, I don't. Like, I do not have that luck.
Uh-huh.
Like, I get officers every single time that it's officer, straight as an arrow, hard ass.
Uh-huh.
I never, ever have been pulled over by Officer Flirty.
Uh-huh.
I never get an Officer Flirty.
That's because you put both buttons up and act like an accountant every time someone in a uniform comes around.
Basically. Oh.
All right,
Mary points out there is a bit of a Autobahn in the U.S. Going west of the Colorado state line, no speed limits. I have had my fun.
And apparently in Montana, too. Very cool.
Ooh, ran through Montana in old Cutlass Supreme at 110.
Hey, those babies will get up and move.
There you go. But no, but Brenda's with me.
Uh-huh.
I do the speed limit too.
Uh-huh.
Like, I'm sorry. My last ticket, no, I do not want to repeat that experience. Though technically that was in Wythe County. Mm-hmm. Just at the outer edge. Mm-hmm. And the officer estimated I was doing at least 104 when I saw him and began to slow down.
I agree with Ashley.
Virginia is, and especially on 77, Virginia is hard to drive through and do anything but what they tell you to. Like, you don't want to play with them. They are bored off their ass.
Again, depends on how you drive, what you're driving, and where you're driving. I swear they profile.
Yeah, they love the out-of-state plates, which they can easily figure out because it either is on the front, because Virginia is a two-plate state.
Uh-huh.
You either don't have a plate on the front, which immediately identifies you as an out-of-stater, or your plate on the front is the wrong one. Because Virginia is pretty generic. Like, it's blue and white. Like, it's not a very, like, over-the-top plate. Right. So they very quickly zero in.
Right. My last ticket, you guys will laugh. I'll go ahead and share this, and then we're going to be wrapping up. It'll give Joe time to get techy. My last ticket was going 43 and a 55. I was impeding traffic at 2:30 in the morning on an off-ramp.
Oh, and the rest of that story is hilarious.
Yes.
Because there was a fundamental reason why anyone cared.
Yep.
But yes, West Virginia can be a nicer place to drive. It's also, though, one of those places people have problems here. Between the banked curves, which, if you're not familiar, West Virginia roads are not perfectly level. Right. We tilt curves like a racetrack. Not to that degree, but like a racetrack. So that you're basically pushed to take the curve.
Right. Yes, I am dead serious, Ashley. Apparently this officer had dated my father's daughter. Note that. My father's daughter and my mother's daughter, just not my sister, and knew the car, and I had mom and dad's car out at 2:30 in the morning. How dare me be out on the road at that time? And they expected to pull my mother over. They were a little surprised when they pulled me over.
Yeah. Meanwhile, my last ticket was 8565 reckless back in, I think it was 2001 or 2000. No, it was 2000. 2001, I think it was.
The meth drivers don't bother me. What bothers me more so is the hillbilly drivers that apparently have never seen how to merge onto the interstate, and they come on the off-ramp and they go to get onto the interstate and they stop.
Yeah. Well, now my version of that I hate are the ones that are literally take the on-ramp at traffic speed. So if it's a 65 mile per hour road, they hit that on-ramp at 65. And then if the whole interstate does not stop and allow them to enter, they slam on the brakes at the end of it and then treat you like you're the one with a problem.
Right. Yeah, and it drives me freaking insane. Merging is a thing that apparently does not get taught in driving school anymore. How hard is it? You take your car and you slowly move into the lane, preferably at the speed of 5 miles below the interstate. So if it's 65, you move in at 60.
Yeah. But yeah, but it is a skill that some people, it's very hard to master.
Yep.
Like, it is one of those things you have to pace traffic and figure out where you're going in at. And your surrounding motorists help. The people already on the interstate do have to keep consistent. That's the other thing that gets me is when trying to merge, you see that person who is like, "You're not going to cut me off. You're not getting in front of me." And so they speed up. And it's like, I hate you. That's the one that always gets me. I see my opening, I'm ready to take my opening, and then they see that I'm going to do that and get in front of them. And so they speed up to throw me off. You're not getting in front of me.
Yeah.
Switch
lanes, dude, and you move on. Yeah.
It's who the fuck cares? What? How bad is your day? That this is the thing you've chosen to do. I just hope you got something out of that. Because all you did for me was become that asshole.
Right. So, all right, then. Let's wrap this up because editing is going to be fun.
We went a little long.
Yes, we did, but it's okay to go a little long, especially when we're having fun and we've gotten some time to talk and cover some cool stories.
We did.
Now, for those in the area, yes, we will be at Beckley Pride tomorrow. Look for this shirt. I will be around.
I had that ready to go.
Yes. No, I will not be reading. I will be in Papa Bear mode. If you need a hug, come see me. That's the only thing I'm doing. And having fun. Baristas may get a vlog out of it. I'm hoping.
Yes.
Yes.
All right, so take it away.
Take it away.
All right, so of course we want to thank our Patreons, our lovely baristas, Beverly Walker, Mika G, Kathy, Mary Winfield, Brenda Bryant, Ashley Guest, Shannon C, and Shannon D. We really appreciate their support and all that they enable us to do with that support. If you'd like to support the show or learn more about us, please visit pcspnetwork.com.
Yep. And you guys be safe. Happy Pride Month. Remember what it's for. It isn't just for us together as a community. It's for us to network and get to know our businesses and the people that actually do support us locally. And also remember the reason for it. If you do not know what the Stonewall riots were, the full story of them, go and fucking Google it.
Yes.
We will see you hopefully Tuesday night if everything goes well. And happy Pride, y'all. Bye.
Bye.